Let's talk about TNA. TNA in the process, TNA at this time is in the process of one of their bigger months in company history. We're moving into prime time in November, and it's going to change the whole creative team as well. They're removing Mike Tenay, Scott D'Amore, and Jeremy Borash, and instead installing Vince McMahon, or I'm sorry, Vince Russo. That would have been hilarious. Vince Russo is the head of creative. What were your conversations like with TNA? Did Dixie call you? Did Jarrett call you? Did Russo call you? Who first comes in touch with you about the opportunity to go to TNA?
Dixie Carter. She called me and we talked on the phone, and then Jeff ended up calling me, and Jeff Jarrett, and we discussed a possibility of working together, and they told me to write down a figure, and they would reach out to me the next day, and we'll see if we can make it work. So it was relatively easy, painless, quickest deal I ever did. I wrote down my figure, and the next day they said, okay, we'll fly up and sign you. It
was that easy.
Yeah. No negotiations. It was just one-time thing. And I got what I wanted, and I was very happy.
So let's talk about the terms of that contract. I don't want you to tell me the number, but JR has a conversation a lot with me where he says, for the wrestling business, it comes down to cash and creative, the two C's. So you've got the cash figured out. Is creative even discussed at that point?
No, it wasn't. I was surprised, but I knew that they rehired Vince Russo as the head of creative. I was excited about that because I never worked with Vince Russo before.
Y'all just barely missed each other, right?
Yes, we barely missed each other in WWE, WWF at the time. So I was really excited because I knew how talented he was, and I was looking forward to his creative ideas.
So what was your impression of working with Dixie Carter?
She was all business. I loved her. She also has a motherly careness about her that really makes her stand apart from others. She really cares about the individuals, without a doubt. Always cared about me. Always put my health and my life first. That's what I really enjoyed about Dixie. If I wasn't feeling good, or if I couldn't work a certain night, I could just tell her I could take the night off, and she'd be okay with it. When I had to go to rehab, she paid me the whole time I went there, and she even let me have 3 months off afterward. Like she was the most giving person I've ever been with, and it wasn't always about money with her. It was about being a humanitarian.
What about Jeff Jarrett? Back then, I don't think you had spent much time with him, right? I mean, I think your times in the WWE would have just barely crossed paths, or maybe missed each other slightly.
Yeah, so I didn't know Jeff that well. He was in WWE when I started training there. So I would be at TVs with him where I do dark matches, and Jeff would be on TV shows. But I didn't talk to him that much, but I got to have a really good relationship with him when I signed with TNA. And, Jeff's always been a good guy, and he was always good to me.
When you're having these initial conversations, are you having more of the business conversation with Dixie and the actual wrestling conversation with Jeff?
Yes, pretty much. The money, Dixie, the wrestling ideas was Jeff and Vince Russo, actually. So, that's how they did it. That's how they ran the business, and they continue to do it that way.
This sounds silly because you sort of laid out that you just asked for a certain amount of money and then they agreed with it. Were they your best financial offer, or were they just the most quote unquote stable?
They were one of the top financial offers that I got. I put it this way. It was 7 figures.
Okay.
It was a 5-year deal, and I ended up signing that 5-year deal again when the contract was up. So they always took care of me. So, I got 11 years out of them for 7 figures a year. That was enough for me.
Yeah,
I was good with that, especially being a smaller company like TNA. I don't think anybody else was getting paid nearly as much as I was. I think the next guy in line was making like 300. So, there was a big gap. They were taking a big, gigantic chance with me. And I knew that, and I was very grateful for that.
Well, it was a landmark signing for TNA. Eric says context is king. To add the context to this, you were considered to be, and had been for quite some time, the best wrestler in the world. And if you're trying to compete in prime time and you're trying to, no longer be just the Wednesday night pay-per-view or a random afternoon on Fox Sports Net, but we're going to be on a major cable system in prime time, who better to debut with than the best wrestler in the world?
You're right about that. I was the best wrestler in the world at the time. At least I thought I was. And I think a lot of fans would have agreed at that particular time.
Somewhere in here, what always threw me off is I think your manager at the time, Mr. Dave Hawk, announced that you were going to retire as a professional wrestler to become a full-time MMA fighter. Was that ever the actual plan, or was that always, as Vince would say, a swerve, bro?
That was a swerve, bro. That was because TNA didn't want anybody to know that I was debuting there. And I also didn't want anybody to know. So we kept it very hush. Our meetings were very private. Whenever I go to meet with Dixie or Jeff, there would only be like 3 people in the room, and they would have to sign NDAs that they couldn't say anything or they'd get sued. So there was a lot of hush going on during that particular time.
Also, again, I don't want to get too much into the details of your contract, but I've always been fascinated by this. Apparently there was a carve out that you asked for that you could do MMA. So you could do these outside deals, including mixed martial arts. Dixie was okay with that.
Dixie was okay with that. As dumb as it sounded, that's what I wanted at that time. And that's what I was trying to get. I still wanted to get a big fight or a few big fights. And, that's why I was training MMA at the same time as when I signed with TNA. So it would have been almost impossible, though. I wouldn't have been able to compete at my fullest potential if I was still pro wrestling. And I didn't understand that at that time. All I was seeing was dollar signs. And that was enough for me at that particular time to want to do it. So, and I'm glad I didn't, because I don't know if I would have ended my career, something freak accident.
Sure.
During an MMA fight. So you never know what could happen. And I don't think you can fight and wrestle at the same time. I don't think anybody can.
I want to mention too, because we have talked a lot about money here, and you laid out that was a primary focus. You have to appreciate Kurt's mentality at the time. He's coming off of all these brutal injuries. He's broken his neck multiple times. So even though we haven't overtly said it here on this show, we should now. You're probably wondering, I don't know how much longer I can do this. So I need to make as much money as I can right now. Right?
Yes. And that was my mindset. That's why I wanted to do MMA. I didn't know how long I was going to be able to stand this constant beating of my body. And
yeah.
So I was looking for bigger paydays, and that was part of the reason why I wanted to do MMA as well, is to make more money quicker.